just working on a little flower at ×10 of Farsetia linearis. That's an endangered plant in Sharjah in the UAE, in the desert. And I actually first started working on this back in 2008. And then everything got put on hold because of the financial crash. And the project has been picked up again recently, and this is going to have a new home in Sharjah, which I'm absolutely delighted about. So, using a repeatograph, and this one is a 0.30, and just working on the petals, and then putting the central vein in. So these are all just tiny little dots. So this whole plate, which I'll show you later, is a dissection of this tiny little, what I thought was a pretty insignificant plant in the desert, until I put it under the microscope, and then it became really interesting. So I'm just putting a few dots in for shading, just for the little creases in the petal. But that seems to happen quite a lot when you have something very small and insignificant and just a little sort of few scrabbly branches on the floor, and it doesn't look very interesting. And then as soon as you get it under the microscope, wow, suddenly the hidden beauty is revealed. So don't take things at face value. So this is all quite mesmerising with the dots, the traditional illustration method that's used by Kew and other Botanic Gardens and scientific illustrators on different topics as well. And I've done hundreds at Kew of plates using this method. So we'll just move over here. I'm sorry. Just keep it covered. And we'll put them on this side. And I'll stop it here and then show you progress, because otherwise you're going to be here for hours with me. I'll show you progress in a moment. So this is the little flower I'm working on, the Farsetia, and then moving up I've mapped in the stem and another flower here, another flower full on there, so trying to get different angles of the flowers and some little buds up here. But the tricky bit is these parallel stems, and when they're quite long sweeps like this, trying to keep them parallel and even and here, and you can't hesitate, otherwise you get bumps, and so you've just got to get your eye in and go, and you've got to look at sort of where you're going, not where you're coming from, but where you're actually going to, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'll keep going with the little dot dot dots. So the stems on this plant are hairy to try and reduce moisture loss, because it's a plant in the desert. And so the hairs, which these ones are times 30, are what they call oppressed, which means they sit closely to the surface and of the stem, and they're medifixed, means they're fixed in the middle. So these stems have all these closely fixed stems close together to help prevent moisture loss. But over here, when the little flowers are ×6 as opposed to ×10, it's you have to get the feeling that it's hairy, but also that the hairs go in both directions. So it's a case of doing some little flicks, and then I'll come back and flick the other way. And you don't want too many on this side, because we're trying to keep the 3D effect as well. So they're densely hairy. So flick, flick, flick. So it's a flick rather than a dot, because they're trying to show that their hairs are there. And because they're fixed in the middle, I've got to flick some the other way. very mesmerising again. And it's also a case of trying not to get too many to bump into each other, so you've got to go between the hairs. So it's almost just like creating a texture or a feel for it, and then obviously the detail at times 30 really shows what the hairs look like. So I'll leave that for now and then come back to it, because we need some on this side as well. So I'll do a bit more and then I'll show you progress. Mesmerising. Tiny little flower in the desert. Okay, pause and I'll show you progress. Don't want you going to sleep.